Welcome to the Total Health Podcast, brought to you by Total Health Nutrition Center of Menominee Falls and New Berlin, Wisconsin. Join Total Health founder Marty Johnson and his guests as they discuss some of the most prolific topics in natural health. Listen now as him and his guests talk about how to take back your health naturally.
Okay, well, it's great to be talking to you about the topic of CBD. It's been a while since I've done a podcast on CBD. It was a ways back, but since then, I've actually been able to finish a book on CBD and hopefully answering some questions about that I often hear in practice about CBD and its use, and a little bit of inside information that can be very valuable. But in addition to that, we've also, mostly out of frustration of not knowing, not knowing as far as how reliable each brand is. I've done a lot of research into different criteria that I prefer in a CBD product. So therefore, to make it simpler, at least for our clinic and for people when we're describing it, we've developed our own brand called Clinical CBD Solutions, and which follows all the guidelines that we're going to talk about today. So today I thought it would be good just to go through some of the most common questions that I get on CBD and do kind of a Q&A type of thing. Obviously, it's just me, so I'll present the question and then pose my answer, and hopefully it will be a blessing to you. So the first question that I get a lot is, why is there so much hype about CBD and how can it have so many benefits? Because you hear a lot of different benefits from CBD, which will be kind of covered in the book that I wrote. And the answer to that really goes back to what's called the endocannabinoid system. So it's one of the body's really amazing regulatory systems, and it's called the endocannabinoid system, and it's really a complex network of substances called cannabinoids, out of which we produce these endocannabinoids, which are substances that plug into what's called receptor sites on different cells of the nervous system and of organs. And this whole network really touches almost every physiological system in our bodies and orchestrates communication throughout the entire body. So due to various factors such as stress and toxins, poor imbalanced diet, some people may not produce enough cannabinoids because of these factors. And to properly support the endocannabinoid system. So we find that really your ability to regulate, we call it homeostasis or balance, your ability to regulate many different body systems, even your body temperature and whether you're hungry or not, and how your body responds to that, and all kinds of different things. It's all relying on how the endocannabinoid system is working. And if it's not working up to par because of environmental factors and stress, like we mentioned, and toxins, a lot of things can feel out of sorts. So the amazing thing, what I'm getting at is the amazing thing about CBD is that it actually contains substances called phytocannabinoids, and these actually can support the endocannabinoid system. So here's a plant source of these cannabinoid substances that your body normally produces, but it's a plant source that plugs right into these receptors and helps to balance this endocannabinoid system. So really phenomenal aspect of this plant that God has really given us. So the next question I'd like to go into is there are so many brands out there. How do I know I'm getting the best quality CBD? Well, I kind of touched on why we developed a brand, but at Total Health here. But really, the answer is or first of all, it's one of the most common questions that I get, because you find CBD all over the place in gas stations and sometimes department stores and everything in between, it seems like. And obviously it's popular and it's something to make a dollar on. So it's not always the first, quality is not always the first thing on people's minds, retailers' minds, when they're providing this. It's like, okay, well, let me take advantage of this situation. And I'm not saying that they're ruthlessly taking advantage of people. I'm just saying that they're getting in on the sales of the product. Maybe they don't even understand it as well as they should before selling it. But this is the criteria that through my studies that we use really when we're trying to purchase CBD from other companies that we carry in our store. And of course, what we used when we worked with the actual growers to produce our own CBD. So number one is that it must be organic and non-GMO, which means non-genetically modified plants. Not too many brands are actually labeled organic, mostly because it takes this certification, and that takes time and money. So that's one thing that you want to be looking for. Other thing is that it's monitored from seed to bottle. So basically, they monitor closely all the processes of how they grow it and how they extract it, all the way till it's in the bottle and through the entire manufacturing process. The third one that I laid out here is it's extracted with non-toxic chemicals. So to get the oils out of the plant, they have to use substances to extract that. And sometimes companies can use substances that aren't as pure as they could be using. So we want to be aware of that. The fourth one is that it must be free from toxins such as chemicals and heavy metals, proven by independent lab analysis. So this is a little bit redundant, because if it's organic, it should be free of chemicals and metals and things like that. But I like to make sure that it's proven by an independent lab that's independent of the grower and the person manufacturing it. And of course, we look at that all the time with our batches and so forth, even from companies that are outside of what we produced. 5 is that it must be full spectrum, meaning that it has all of the phytonutrients, natural oils, and the bioactive chemicals and metabolites that nature provides in that plant. So usually this is proven by independent lab analysis again. And it really, 6 is actually that it must contain also the THC as proven by lab analysis. So some people go, wait a minute now, the THC, I thought that was the euphoric, that gives people the euphoric effect that is not so desirable, and why it's illegal to use marijuana and things like that. Well, first of all, this is all regulated by the FDA, but as far as what different limits can be, the legal limit is under 0.3% THC, but it needs to be in there. So that, those levels, there's no euphoric effect. It's not going to affect you in a bad way at all. There's only upside to it. But it's important that it's in there. Otherwise, it's not full spectrum. And many times I've seen manufacturers actually state has no THC in it, as if that's a good thing. But the problem is they also label it as full spectrum, and it's not. It doesn't have all of the elements that God put in that plant to begin with. So that's an important factor as far as how it's going to work in your body as well. And the last one is that it must be medical grade. I call it medical grade, meaning that all the manufacturing processes are followed per FDA pharmaceutical regulations. So it just ensures that all the processes are being done carefully and to the best purity and so forth. So there's what I call my 7 criteria for a good product, really a good reliable product. Next question is are there any factors that can hinder how well CBD may work for me? I've had a lot of people ask that question. And the answer is yes, there is. This is something that I might have mentioned on the last podcast, but it's worthy of another mention, is that one of the major issues, if not corrected, could significantly hinder how well you as an individual is going to respond to CBD. And that is if a person has enough what's called polysaturated fatty acids in their system, in their body. So in other words, your blood levels need to be at a certain saturation level rate of these polysaturated fatty acids. Basically, to make it simple right away, is you might have heard of omega-3 fatty acids. That's one source of polyunsaturated fatty acids, and also omega-6s are. But as we go along here, we're going to find that most people are deficient in the omega-3 fatty acids, and they have too many omega-6 fatty acids. So really, these mostly the omega-3 fatty acids are found in fish oil, flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, and they're really a rich source in omega-3s. And these are really precursors. So these oils are precursors and homeostatic regulators of the endocannabinoid system. So they play a big role in how your endocannabinoid system is going to function. And if they're deficient or not present, it's going to play a big role in how well you're going to respond to your CBD, even if it's the best quality out there. Okay. So really maintaining proper levels of these polyunsaturated fatty acids are key to maintaining this whole endocannabinoid system, as a summary. Maintaining proper ratios of the omega-6 fatty acids, which are found in like corn, safflower, sunflower, grapeseed oil, soy, peanuts. Unfortunately, the omega-6 fatty acids are in a lot of things that Americans eat, and we get way too many omega-6s compared to omega-3s. And it's important to have the right ratio of this omega-6 to omega-3. The ratio of these two really should be closer to 4-1 of 6-3. And many people I have tested are as high as 18-20-1, putting them at higher risk for cardiovascular disease, because that kind of high ratio is much more inflammatory in the system. And so it puts a person at risk of cardiovascular disease, memory issues, chronic inflammation. And of course, if they're trying to get benefits from CBD, they're not going to work as well when those ratios are off like that. And it's really estimated that only 2% of the population has adequate omega-3 levels, just because we don't get enough of them in our diet a lot of times. So as I kind of alluded to, we do use a lab test, which is phenomenal. It's a lab test that can actually, you can do at home. It's a blood test, but it's a blood spot test. So you can do a simple finger prick, put some blood on a little spot on a sheet and send it in. And the lab can test that to find out your specific saturation rate of omega-3s in your blood, and also the ratios of 6-3, which is very valuable for a very inexpensive test. So that I highly recommend that to my clients when I'm working with them. Next question is, what are the most popular symptoms CBD is used for? So I thought I would kind of wrap up the Q&A on this, which is a little more involved, but the main symptoms that I find the most benefit, now there's many, and you'll find that in the book, but the biggest ones are for pain, sleep, and anxiety from what I've found. And I've used this over many years. And so I thought, let's kind of break this down a little bit. The other question that we get is, what dose is the best for me? And that's kind of a hard one to just generalize. It's really, it really is very specific to each individual. And I usually like to start people on a higher dose at first, unless I have a suspicion that they have an allergy to the plant, which are, you really can't tell unless I'm, testing and have them in my office. But if I'm just talking to someone, I'm going to probably have them go with a higher dose first. And if it's, it starts to work for what they're seeking help with, then I'll have them kind of lower it until they in small increments till they find a specific threshold that works for them. So that way they're using what they need and they're not spending money on what they don't need. The problem is that if you start too low and never go high enough, then you may never realize that it could have worked wonderful for you and you just completely missed the boat on it. So that's the reason for my logic there. So going into the three areas that I had mentioned, pain, sleep, and anxiety as far as the most common uses. The first one that I'd like to talk about is, so I get many questions about, okay, what's the best product that I can combine with CBD for improved sleep? So a person might find that CBD is helping them with their sleep, but, what can I combine it with to get better effects? I mentioned in the book that there's actually a couple of different things depending on the reason for why they're not sleeping and the patterns of their sleep, whether they're not falling asleep right away or they're falling asleep and not staying asleep. But for the purpose of this podcast, I thought I would just give you the most common product that I recommend. So the number one, like I said, everyone is different and every situation is different, but really the most common product that I recommend is combining CBD with, it's a product called GABA Calm. And GABA is a neurotransmitter that your body produces, and it helps to really calm down or level out, overactive brain activity. And when you add more GABA to the picture, it can really help to further calm that brain down more and help a person sleep deeper. GABA comes in a lot of different forms, although it gets destroyed in the stomach pretty easy with the stomach acids. So that's why I recommend the GABA Calm, because it comes in a lozenge where you can dissolve it under the tongue. It goes right into the bloodstream. And the reason why it really mixes well with the CBD is because CBD itself actually kind of inhibits a enzyme that helps to clear GABA out of the receptors in the brain. So your body naturally produces GABA. GABA plugs into these little receptors so the cells can respond to it. But then eventually there's enzymes that clear that receptor out so that it can be reused again. CBD actually slows down that clearing out process, which naturally helps to keep GABA levels elevated. But then when you add additional GABA, it can really help with calming the system down, calming the brain down, and helping with sleep better. The other question basically is, what's the best product to combine with CBD for anxiety, which we mentioned as far as one of the common ones that we use CBD for. And really I found that a product called Anxial Calm is really excellent to combine with CBD due to its natural, it's called alkamides that are specific part of the echinacea plant. So some of you might have heard of the echinacea for the immune regulation, the immune system. Matter of fact, echinacea, a lot of people were using it or have been using it even just for just healthy preventative antiviral, especially with the corona stuff going around. And but this alkamide in echinacea, it has to be a specific species of the echinacea plant. It's called the angustifolia species, and it has to be in a very specific milligram and produced in very careful ratios. The product that I'm talking about, I believe, is produced in Europe. But this alkamide actually plugs into the THC receptors in the brain, giving it a very calming effect to the central nervous system. So it can be wonderful for anxiety and even like ADHD and things like that. But it doesn't create a psychoactive effect like marijuana would or anything like that at all. But it's great because it's actually working on the THC receptors, and then the CBD is working on other receptors to keep that GABA level up. So it's a very good combination for anxiety. And the last question, which comes right to the pain, what's the best product to combine with CBD for pain? And as mentioned in the book, there's many, many different options because there's different root causes to a person's pain. However, the most common one that I recommend is a concentrated form of turmeric called Curamin Extra Strength. And usually I recommend this along with a trademarked black pepper product. So it's called Bioprin. So this is a concentrated black pepper product that helps to do a couple of things. Number one, it actually helps to keep CBD in its receptors longer. For the same reason, CBD, it blocks that GABA receptor, or it blocks the enzymes that clear out GABA receptors. Well, black pepper blocks the enzyme that clears out CBD receptors. So that's one reason, but also the black pepper can enhance the absorption of both the CBD and the turmeric. So they really play wonderful off each other because all around each substance or each product can kind of help enhance each other. And turmeric is really a good, or Curamin is a great product for pain in general. It works on what's called the COX inhibitors, which is what your ibuprofen works on, but it works on multiple different levels of these COX enzymes versus ibuprofen works only on one or two levels. So really the synergy is a great combination, what I've found over the years. So as mentioned before, there's very specific needs and uses for different situations. So I don't want people to think that this is the end-all answers, but hopefully it will be a blessing to you and at least give you a little bit more direction and guidance. If you do want to sort of unravel and uncover the root cause to maybe what's driving some of your concerns, by all means, you can give us a call at 262-251-2929. That's one of our. We have two different clinics in New Berlin and Menominee Falls, but that is our main office number to contact us, and you can schedule a no charge, no obligation 15-minute consult with one of our practitioners to really just go over your concerns. It's not anything but that, to make sure that it's even the right fit as far as what we do. And if it is, then we can move forward to the next step, which might be scheduling into a initial visit, which is about an hour and a half. And we do multiple different types of tests in that visit to discover maybe the root cause of what's going on and how to get you moving better in the right direction with your health, so you can live better, to empower yourself to do the things you want to do and help others. So
thanks for listening to this episode of the Total Health Podcast. If you're ready to take the next steps in taking back your health, please give our office a call at 262-251-2929 to claim your no-charge 15-minute phone consult to see what next steps could be. Also, if you'd like further information, please see us online at www.totalhealthinc.com. Thanks for listening.